Hi friends, welcome to episode 94. This is the very last day of August, the 31st. Tomorrow it's September and next week it's the return of the school children. We run a lot of school buses where I work and it's back to the grind, unfortunately. So I've spent 2 extra days down here during the course of the week, Tuesday and a Thursday, and I had hoped we were going to make quite a bit of progress. So I'll do an update on the progress that we have achieved and those things that we haven't achieved later on in this video. I'm still working on those advert panels. I've still got quite a bit to do around the back of the bus as well. So this weekend, hopefully, I might get myself back a little bit on track. It's an interesting project, this. It's a bit like peeling an onion. You take off one layer thinking, I've done it now, and then you find that something else underneath needs to be done, and so on and so on. RTs are certainly a challenge, but you learn a lot along the way. So anyway, hopefully stick with this. I'm going to pop the kettle on and have that coffee and then get started on this. So, see you later. A quick flashback to last week. It's really great to get these advert panels on. It's something that I wanted to have done probably at the beginning of summer. But anyway, let's not worry about that. It is now time to get on with some of the other stuff, like rubbing down the back of the bus and removing the last of that MBC green around the rear blind box and that side blind box. Right, so the final bits of the original paint are now coming off. These panels here, as I mentioned in one of the previous episodes, I'm going to keep. So having to remove the paint from them. The device I'm using is the orbital sander, and in actual fact what is quite good about it is it keys the surface up because it's an abrasive disc on there. So what it does is it removes the paint and then leaves me a very nice surface for the primer coats. I have to go back to putting all the primer coats back on here, but I want to get this particular area done around the blind box before I do the back of the bus, because then I can then get that little panel that's missing there back in, and I can then put the rain strip back on and some of the beading, so that then completes the advert area. So I want to do this because spraying, well, you can mask it up and you do all the rest of it, but you know, it's not. It's easier to do it like this. It's just leave a little bit of a gap, and I can get that all nicely sprayed up. So I'll mask it up by the end of this edition. There we go. So we open the little blind box thing out. So right, let's have a look at the back of the bus, because we've got quite a bit of work to do at the back there. So this is the near side corner panel. The little insert shows what it was like on Saturday morning. Now these I'm saving because they've got an unusual shape to them. You can actually probably just about see it, where they taper towards the top and are slightly wider at the bottom, as well as curving around the corner. Now we can get those remade, but I thought it'd be better off if I sort of plonked some filler in them. The problem is with filler is it takes an absolute age building it up and then sort of rubbing it down and so on and so forth until eventually it disappears. I'm going to put a very thin coat of paint over the top of it, just so I can see whether the filler is still visible. And that's one of the reasons why I'm preferring to paint everything before it goes out to repaint, because they might not be as particular as me. Well, hopefully they are. And I just don't want it coming back looking like it's got the, I don't know, the measles or something like that. So hence the reason why I'm going this far with it. Right, so now one of the bits I left behind was this. Okay, so this is the very back of the RT. When it was parked up against almost the back of the shed where those shelving were, I couldn't reach over with the DA. So now it's been pulled forward, I can now get to this bit. So yeah, that was a little bit, and there's a strip that runs almost sort of this, maybe 1.5 feet wide, right the way down the centre of the bus. Well, that's not visible here because it's covered in dust. But yeah, about 1.5 feet that I couldn't get to. I probably need a much taller gantry or to get up on the roof, but I don't fancy doing that, to be quite honest with you, as falling off tends to hurt a little bit. So this bit needs to be done. I don't know why there's a red colour in there. This RT's body has never been red, But, you know, once again, we see a kaleidoscope of different colours. The other thing is, and it's not very evident in this shot, is where it's been bashed by trees and chipped paint off, there's these sort of like little, I don't know if they're like bullet holes, not bullet holes, but there's little scrapes all the way through the paint where the trees have run along the roof and then they've come off the back, they've taken bits of paint off. So yeah, this obviously is going to have to be reprimed as well at some point. So, and there's a load of dents on the roof as well, which is going to create an awful lot of dust. If I haven't already created a ton of dust as it is, this is only going to add to it. But I want to do that roof. Probably I might, if I can get a run in and I can get her mobile, I'll stick her outside and then probably spend maybe another holiday period just doing all those dents on the roof, because there's a hell of a lot of them. But anyway, there's this little bit that's got to come off. So this is what it looks like with the majority of the paint off around that corner piece and around that near side blind box. I've also put some masking paper around the near side blind box as well. The reason is I've got to use paint strippers, a very small bit, probably about 1/4 of an inch. My brother will tell me off for not using millimetres, but there's a 1/4 of an inch lip that goes around between the glass and the frame, and I need to get the paint off on that 1/4 of inch lip. And if I'm using a power tool, I don't want it to scratch the glass, hence the reason why that masking paper is on there. And you see I've done the other 2 blind boxes exactly the same thing, it's just to protect the glass. But the one at the top, that emergency exit, that's going to be my next project. So you can see where I've put that masking tape around, and the reason why, although that little corner piece there is actually quite large, but it's still too small for me to use the orbital sander on it. I could probably do a little bit on it, but it's not going to make much difference. So I'm going to have to resort on this all the way round to the paint stripper. And you can see the paint stripper's merrily doing its business there, competing possibly with all the dust on the glass. That number 3 you can see just in there, that was a note I wrote in the dust. I've had to measure, it's not in this shot unfortunately, it might be in another one later on. There's a rubber rain strip that runs around the emergency exit, and it is decrepit. So what I plan to do is to replace it, hence the reason why I had to measure it in meters. So it's measured there. Now just at the top of shot you can see there's a very nice copper strip, and I managed to I think DA that off and paint strip that as well. So now I reckon I've got to remove that to change the little rubber strip that goes around it, which will be a job for another day. The nice thing about paint stripping is it reveals stuff underneath. Now you can see there, just about make out the 2 open and then a little arrow, and that was on the Lincoln green. I don't know if they replicated it on the MBC, I didn't see that there, but anyway, that was on the Lincoln green, so in London Transport Johnson Tech. So I'm going to have to get that, I'll get that redone. For the boring sort of facts about it is that the lettering should be in a contrasting colour. White on dark green probably works very well. White on red works extremely well, but light green is probably a bit of a difficult sort of, I don't know, colour to contrast with, and more confusingly the National Bus Company actually used silver or grey. So there we are. Right, so we can see just on the edge of shot you can see that rubber strip, which is really decrepit. That actually is not a bad bit of it, but when we go to the top, it just looks, well, it looks really bad. And you can see the copper stripping as well and the countersunk rivet. I'm going to have to take that little metal ball thing off, and that is the culprit for a lot of the dents on the back of the bus, because when you open up that window it drops down and then that little ball thing punches against the advert panel and damages it. On Routemasters, to my knowledge, there's actually a strengthening piece behind the panel, and it's not a metal ball, I think it's a little rubber ball on a Routemaster. So again, it's one of the factors that Colin Curtis and his team factored out of the design of the Routemaster. Right, so having let the paint stripper do its thing, this is what happens. You get a little scraper out and you have a good go at it. What I tend to do is in the summertime, I'll put this on the bus at the very last thing at night, and then I go home, and in the morning I'll come back and it's normally done a lot better job. This has been on here for probably about 2 hours. But this paint is really resilient to the paint stripper, and you can see I'm putting quite a bit of effort into getting it off. I'm surprised I don't slice my hand open with it, but this will need 2 or 3 coats of paint stripper to get it off finally, and then a good going over with a wire brush. But that is the reason why I've got that that tape around the edge of the glass. I do happen to have some spare rear window glasses. I didn't realise I had them, and I was poking around in the shed looking for some other bits and pieces and came across the two new sheets of glass. I've also got at the back of the shed, I've got a spare complete window pan assembly. I've got the whole lot, all of this stuff I've got again, but it is off a red Rootmaster, red RT Rootmaster. But the other thing is the inside of this has got Rexine panelling on it, and I never did. I did the Rexine panelling inside the RT in the early 1990s. It's over 30 years ago, and I still think of it as new. But unfortunately, it started to bubble. The weather's got to it a bit in there, and it doesn't look good. I don't really want to do the upper deck again, but you know what I'll do? I'll start on one bit, and then before you know it, it'll be the whole lot's got to come out. Right, so while the paint stripper is doing its thing on that window pan, it's time to do some of these. These are the half round beading that goes underneath the windows, above the windows. Yeah, so it runs around the bus basically. I probably need about 5 of them, but I've decided I'm going to do 7. Just in case I mess one up, or just in case I need more. I tend to do a little bit more than I need, because once I get the spray gun out, I don't want to be doing small bits. It's not economical. It takes me probably about 40 minutes to an hour to clean the spray gun. So it's not really, as I say, it's just a waste of time. So it's better to do more and put it to one side and not use it than it is actually to start the whole process again. So here's 7 strips of metal, which I'm going to have to drill, countersunk, rub down and prepare for spraying. Oh, sorry, before that, I've got a word from our sponsor. It's me waving a pen around. This is a nice little job I can do sitting down. It's just preparing the beading. With the panels due to go back on the bus at some point, I need to do this. I'm waiting for the flat bar beading still, but once that arrives, I'm going to have to repeat the process with that as well. So at least this is something that doesn't involve the use of paint stripper or something horrid. So anyway, look, thank you very much for everyone that's been commenting on the videos. Apologies if I don't come back immediately. The reason for that is that I've been spending quite a lot of time down here working on the RT. So I haven't really had much time at home to respond to your comments, and they are very welcome, I point out, so please keep doing them. Next week the kids are back at school, and we run a lot of school buses, so it's going to be back to work. So have I got much done down here over the summer period? I don't know, I'm not entirely sure about it. I certainly didn't get as much as I had hoped to get done, but you know, looking at it, there's progress, and a couple of people have visited during the summer period and they've gone, oh, you've done well. It just doesn't feel like it. It just feels that every day it's the same old thing. So anyway, I'm going to carry on making up these beadings. There's 7 there, which is probably about 2 more than I need, but at least I've got a little bit of spare. Right, let's kick off and carry on. Apologies for the rubbish sound quality there, never mind. Right, so here I am, having marked up that little piece of beading. I am now drilling the holes, and it's got a bit boring actually after a while doing 7 of these, but all those holes are all now evenly spaced, and I'm going to try to get them, when I put them on the bus, I'm going to try and get the holes sort of, if you sort of line the beading up, if you go up the bus, I'm going to try and get them all sort of lined up if I can. May not be possible, but there we go. So, and I mentioned I'm going to do a few more just as a bit of a run-off. But I did have one already at the back of the shed, which I'd painted previously, and I thought, well, I'll use that one while I've got it available, and put that at the top of the bus, just over the top of the advert beading. But I still had an original one, also original one I put on when I put the corner panels on, that was in need of fixing. So let's have a look at that for a minute. Right, normally I don't do it like this, but this bit of beading, because it curved round the front, I had to do a little bit of work on it to get it, one, to curve around and also to twist. So I thought it was best to just put the whole thing on, which meant it overlapped, as you can see, the advert panel. However, yeah, I had to get some, to put this back on the bus, even though I've got that little copper strip, I need to put some mastic underneath it. So I got my mastic gun out, and I'm squeezing the thing away. I'm wondering, where on earth's all the mastic going? I don't see any mastic. But what happened was the tube had split. And instead of coming out the little nozzle thing at the end, if you've ever seen one of them, it was coming out the side of the can. And it ended up here all over the side of the bus, which was a bit disappointing. But anyway, I cleaned it up and got on with it. It was okay. I did the second one as well. There was a longer strip which went across the top, that one that I mentioned just earlier on, that I'd already had pre-painted. So I managed to get that on as well, having changed the mastic tube. Right, here I am actually setting the camera up for a little selfie. I forgot it was actually recording. But anyway, and nonetheless, this picture is Kevin Forecast. Kevin's dad was associated with our barn for years, actually. I mean, he goes right the way back to the original setup. Unfortunately, Brian passed away a few years back, but he had this lovely little coach that was in the shed that he really sort of doted over. Unfortunately, when he passed away, the bus got sold on, and but Kevin's remained in touch for several years, and it's good to see Kevin pop up the shed. He's now when that coach was bought, he was 3 years old. He's now an HGV driver, but it was good to see him when he popped in on a Sunday to say hello. So yeah, there's Kevin. Great to catch up with him, and you know, part of the old crowd, really. Really nice to see that we've still got that sort of history, that people pop in and say hello when they're in the area. So yeah, best luck to Kevin, and yeah, pleased to see him once again. Right, should we have a look back at some of the stuff we did and perhaps didn't get done during the summer holiday? I had hoped at the beginning of August that I was going to get a hell of a lot done, and I always think that, I always over imagine what I can actually achieve. I did 4 days a week up at the barn. I did the weekends as usual, Saturday and Sunday, and I also did the Tuesdays and the Thursdays, and I went to work on the Monday, Wednesday and Friday. So I really, as I said, I really hoped I was going to clear off a lot. And here is some of the stuff that I planned to get done. When I took the panels off in April, I knew pretty much that I had a problem with these panels. These are the stress panels, which sit between the upper deck and the lower deck. And if they do two things, I suppose they take a few stresses from the body, but they also deflect water away. But they haven't done a particularly good job of it because there's not much left of them now. Now, in the little insert on the right-hand side, I sent a sample of that, which was a good bit that I managed to get off, to a local fabricator who does a lot of our work on our buses for us. And they initially agreed to take it on, and then when I sent it over to them, they went, the way the thing's folded, they can't do it on their own folding machine, so they put it out to another firm. And I'm still waiting since April for them. I mean, as soon as I get them in, it's probably going to be a 2-weekend job anyway. But there we are. So that's the job I didn't get done. I had hoped it was going to get done. It's going to stop me putting the panels back on the bus. So that is a number one problem that wasn't completed. Right, now this project goes right the way back to last December. Just underneath the bus on the offside is a conduit. and it carries the main cables from the front of the bus, the starter motor, the dynamo and all that, to the back of the bus, to the batteries. And the tail end of that conduit, as shown in the rotted little bit in the picture there, had rotted out completely. In fact, there was about 1.5 foot of it missing, and it seems to be a huge problem with wood rot around the rear wheel arches, because as you well know, I have a problem with the near side. So this was on the offside, and I've decided, right, I'll measure the conduit, see if I can get some replacement conduit. So I ordered up online some stainless steel piping, because stainless steel really doesn't rot, does it? And the problem was, as if you see on the picture on the left hand side, it rises up through the floor, and it has a little kink in the pipe, so that it can rise up through the floor. So where you see there on that left hand side, that is just underneath the bench seat, and that in itself is preventing me putting the panels back on, because I need to get the cable in there. I also want to put that nice little thing on the center there. That's a boost socket. So when I do the rewiring, I've already built all of this. I just need to wire it up. So I'm being held back with a conduit. So we got it, we bent it, and then we couldn't get the cable through. And my colleagues have been really helpful at work, because what they've done is they've tried welding it up for me. We've done all sorts of things, and we just got nowhere. So this is holding me up on the offside of the bus. Once that's out of the way, I can then put the woodwork back, put the wheel arch frame back, and wire it up properly to the batteries. At the moment, the wires come out the side of the bus and they go to the batteries completely separate without going anywhere through the interior. So that's a job that I didn't get done. Right, whereas we've made quite significant progress with the frame of the bus, there's still a few bits and pieces I need to do. The stress panels, which I mentioned earlier, they sit around that mid-deck bit, and I've got some wood to replace around that wheel arch on just on there. If you look on the right hand side picture, and I've got a little bit of wood to do just by the fuel tank down the bottom there. But yeah, some progress has been made, but it's still a job in progress. And there's this project, the ceiling panel project. As you might be aware, I've removed all the ceiling panels from the bus, and my brother came up in December and he helped me make these entirely new panels. There's actually about 5 of them. They're only squeezed 3 in on this shot, and all the little bits of strapping that go across the ceiling. So we've done all of that. I painted it, several coats of paint, did all the primers and everything, and I thought what I'll do is I'll put them at the back of the shed, and then when the summer arrives, August, I'll give them a very final repaint, which will include a top coat with varnish, and then we are ready, once they've hardened off, for them to go back into the bus. Unfortunately, the weekend that I wanted to do it was the weekend that Peter Figg took 1804 down to the Swanley bus rally. And unfortunately, I was so busy doing other things like the external panels that this got skipped. So this is another job that I need to do, and I need to do this before the winter really hits us, because the paint just won't go off properly, and in that shed it is so dusty, it will attract all the dust while it's drying, and that'll be a disaster. So there we are, ceiling panels, didn't get that done either. Right, then there's these brown panels. These are the little bench seat plinths that go over the wheel arches. And you may have seen in a previous episode that we took most of this out, on the floor at least anyway, because we had a big rot problem with the metal. So basically what I did was, as soon as we put everything back, I put one quick coat of brown over the top of the plinth. The red that you see there, that's just an undercoat, and that undercoat also goes around the platform area as well. So the plan of action is, if I'm to put these panels back on the bus, bearing in mind the lower shot shows the panels before they were taken off the bus, I think it'd be a good idea, because the amount of dust that's generated doing this, and to do it now, before I put the ceiling panels back in. So I don't want those ceiling panels ruined. I've spent so many hours doing them. So this has to be done, and did I do it? No, other than rubbing them down a little bit. No, I didn't do that either. Oh yeah, and then there's this, the air system. Do you remember all the hassle we had
with the air system a few months back. We haven't got the bus started up. I really wanted it to go smoothly. Unfortunately, a diverter valve decided it was going to spoil the party by simply unloading everything to atmosphere, so we were not able to build up air properly to get the flag to go up. And then there was this big bang underneath the bus, and suddenly the flag went pop. So sadly, we then had to take the flag unit into work. And a colleague of mine very kindly disassembled it and popped it back together again. So over the holiday period, I was able to put that back in the bus. Success. Started it up and it started to unload straight to atmosphere through the unloader valve. So we've got nowhere other than replacing a few seals in the stop unit. So I'm going to have to look for a diverter valve now, because I think we've really gone as far as we can with the one that's currently on the tank. So did we get that done? Well, sort of. A bit of success, but sadly, no. And then it was this, the hole in the floor. When I took the side of the bus out, I discovered that this structure that holds the floor in place had actually disintegrated almost completely. So where you see that little upright piece of metal on the shot at the top, we took that into our friendly tame fabricators and said, hey, you know, you didn't have a lot of success with the stress panels, but maybe you have a bit of more success with this. And they said, actually, we think we can do that. So that is away with them at the moment, and I will need to chase them this September, because I really like to get that back on the bus. I also want to get something else I should mention. You see the top of the fuel tank there. I want to get that sprayed silver again before the winter really sets in, and also it'd be ideal to do it now while so much of the chassis and the fuel tank and everything's exposed. I can get the spray gun in there. So there we are, a hole in the floor. Did I get it done? No. So this one is probably going to be a maybe. Right, now somehow I found a spare one of these back plates with LYR 880 on it, the registration. And both of them were broken. So what I had to do was repair the one you see in the top left-hand side picture, and rubbed off all the paint, rubbed off all the transfers and everything. And it now looks like this. I haven't got the letters on yet, that's a job in progress, but that is also part of that little lamp box thing you saw me doing in a previous episode. So that's looking quite neat and tidy now. I'm fairly happy with that. So we'll call it a maybe, because it's not entirely finished, and I've still got to get the little reflector lamp to go, or little reflector thing to go in the corner there. This was absolutely beautiful, too good to sit on. So here it is, the two backs that were very skillfully reupholstered by Paul Toomer, and placed back on the frame. The little back panel I've done on the back, that's when you're sitting in the saloon, is what you see. So I've sprayed all that up. That was one of the original ones that came off. I had to knock out the dents and put a little bit of filler in it, but that looks absolutely like new. So yeah, let's tick that one off as a positive job done. Right, so at the beginning of summer, my good friend Alan Brown delivered these panels to me. He'd cut them for me from sheet aluminium. Alan's an absolute expert with this stuff. I do recommend Alan for respraying and doing panel work on buses. He's an absolute king, really, of the art. But anyway, he left me with the sheet alley to rub down and get them all primed up and ready. So the end result is the top coat placed on them, and as you can see in the bottom picture there they are, ready to go back on the bus as soon as we get all the other things sorted out. Right, so we're getting to the positive stuff now. Here are the advert panels going back up on the RT. Again, they were part of that metalwork you saw just now, resprayed and ready to go. And thank you to Peter Veer, who turned up just in the nick of time to help me put on this second panel. So that's another job ticked off. Right, now a couple of months back I was faced with this rather rotted rear lamp box, and as a result it had to be completely stripped down, you know me. So took it all apart, cure rusted it, did whatever necessary repairs to the box, rubbed off all the old paint and polished it all up, and here it is, and it looks really quite nice. I think that was a successful job ticked off. Now all it needs to be done is reunited with that little registration plate and then refixed back onto the bus. So yeah, that's a job I'm really pleased with. There's always going to be the odd job on the RT that you're going to really hate doing, and this was one of them. These are the winder windows. I got the handles chromed at a huge expense. Blooming expensive they were as well. So I got the handles all chromed. They turned them around really quickly in about 2 weeks. Great. And then I had the job of refitting the whole thing back together again. Now, some of these are new frames. They're all existing glass, which has got scratches and all sorts of horrid things on them, but it is the original glass, and that is new window rubber that came from a firm called Baines. And yeah, I started putting them back together. Do you know, they were taking a day a piece. And the reason is I was cleaning everything up and doing, you know, polishing the glass and doing all that. Hence the reason why it took so long. The ones on the off side are in and finished. This is one of the ones from the near side. As you know, I've got the near side out. So when I am ready to pop these back in, they'll go back in the bus. So again, I'll call that probably positively, yeah, done. Right, so that was a positive note to end on. This, and we'll end on this as well. This is the picture of the field. As you know, every weekend I go up, I take a picture. The crops have all gone. It's now been cut down. And after this picture was taken, someone came along and ploughed the field. So there we are. And very clearly by that picture, autumn is on the way, and I really do want to get the outside of that bus back on so I can turn the inside into a nice little cosy workshop and be getting on with the interior over the winter. So look, thanks for sticking with me for this one. Sorry it's been a bit longer than I planned. I really thought I was going to knock this out in 20 minutes and it's gone on to nearly half an hour, a little bit more. So thanks very much for watching. Here's a few more, and hopefully I look forward to seeing you in another edition.